Hi everyone, Tiffany here. Before we jump into today's episode, I just wanted to offer a bit of explanation and apology for our 2.5 month hiatus from the podcast. Our last episode published May 17th, and Shannon and I actually recorded today's episode on May 11th. So this conversation happened a while ago. But something very exciting happened in between. Madison and I got married on July 1st, and Shannon was a beautiful bridesmaid and honestly, like the best friend and most helpful person ever to have by our side in the wedding and for that whole weekend. But anyways, my focus and attention and energy was 100% spent on the wedding in the past couple months. And then, it took a little bit longer than I anticipated to recover from the wedding. So, Shannon and I are getting back into regular recording and publishing, and I am sorry that the hiatus happened without any context or explanation, but we're back at it, and we appreciate, your patience and you continuing to listen to our book talk. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Bookfluencer podcast, where two best friends talk about books.
Welcome to Bookfluencer!
Welcome. I am Tiffany.
And I'm Shannon.
And we have got a couple of good books for you today. In fact, I'm going to ask Shannon whether or not she thinks I should go first, because I don't know if she has looked at the document where I have written my thoughts, but it is a mess. It is a big old mess.
I have not, and now I'm intrigued, and I don't actually want to. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to be talking about JoJo Moyes' Someone Else's Shoes, and then let you take it away.
Okay. I'm going to be talking about Blake Crouch's Dark Matter.
Ooh.
Yes. And I'm going to start by saying that this book was recommended by Madison. He actually purchased it to read for himself. And then after he was done, he was like, you should really read this. It's really good. He was not wrong. It is a very good book. It's not something that I would have picked up at a bookstore by myself. So I'm thankful that he had it and I got to read it. But I'm just going to preface this by saying I'm going to talk about some physics today with this book. And so it might get confusing because I don't totally have a grasp on what's going on. Madison, he just left for work and was coaching me a bit on how to talk about this because I was like, okay.
I believe I've read this book.
Have you?
Yeah, let me double check and make sure it's the Blake Crouch book I'm thinking of.
Because I just read a second Blake Crouch book called Recursion, which was doubly
That's the one I read. You're right.
That one, I don't think I could talk about that one on this podcast because it was just I would need 6 episodes to talk about Recursion.
I felt some things.
I felt a lot of things. I had to put it down so many times, and Madison was just like, keep going, just keep going. And then every time I'd open it, I'd be like, what is it? Not better as in better writing, but better as in it was a really hard, intense part of the book. And I was like, when is the light coming? I need the light.
That whole book is intense. And for me, at least, she touched on some vulnerable populations that I empathize with a lot. So there were times when I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You can't tell that person to do that. That's not cool. So all right, Blake. You have us feeling some things here. Can't wait to hear about this one.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, I'm gonna dive in and stop me at any point if I don't make sense. And I'll try my best. So, Dark Matter. Quick summary is that it is a mind-bending, suspenseful read. And I'm gonna say it's all about the multiverse and how infinite versions of ourselves live on parallel timelines. Like that's kind of what's happening throughout. It's very, very quickly paced. So like the way he writes, that contributes to the suspense feeling that you get. But you can read this real fast because it just flits by. All right. So the big questions that drive the whole story are, what would life be like if you had made a different choice in the past? And if you had the chance to rewrite your story, would you do it? So kind of like those things that we all have of like, what if, like what if I had not gotten out of that relationship in the past? What if, I had taken this job instead of that job? I think we all have kind of those questions that we wonder, like, how might our lives be different if I had made that choice? So that's kind of what the main character is struggling with at the beginning of the book. And the main character's name is Jason, and he is, plagued by that what if thought. In his life, as the book starts, like he loves his wife and his son. He's content with his mediocre career teaching physics at a local college. But he does feel this like tinge of regret, maybe like his career is a letdown compared to the dreams that he had when he was younger. So sorry, I'm toggling back and forth between, oh, there's your little face. I couldn't see your box on there, and I was like, I'm just talking to my document.
Where did Shannon go?
Yeah. So back in his past, when his wife became pregnant with their son, Jason chose their family. He chose, like, I'm going to be a committed father and a committed husband. I'm not going to, he's like, I'm not going to aggressively pursue my physics research anymore. And in doing so, that meant that he forfeited the opportunity to make like scientific breakthroughs, because he's a pretty like genius mind and probably could have created something incredible had he like put his entire self into his research. But because he didn't do that, now he's still brilliant, but he's teaching, at college. So at the start of the book, one of his former, I don't know if it's his former colleague or a friend from college or what, but anyways, he wins this prestigious award that, effectively could have been Jason's award if he had continued to pursue his research. So he's in this like what could have been mindset, right? Okay. Then shit gets wild. Like absolutely wild. I was on the edge of my seat. Here, okay, I'm gonna go into it. An alternate version of Jason. So like a Jason that exists on a different timeline than the one we know as our main character.
Okay.
Has achieved all of the scientific notoriety and success that Jason, I'm going to call him Jason 1, the main Jason, wished he had or wonders what could have been. And this Jason 2, the one who achieved all the success, he uses the invention he created on his timeline to swap lives with Jason 1.
No way.
And I'm gonna quickly read like a little synopsis from Blake Crouch's website before I try to explain it myself. So maybe this will do some context setting. So this is what his website says. In this world Jason's woken up to, his life is not the one he knows. His wife is not his wife. His son has never been born, and Jason is not an ordinary college physics professor, but a celebrated genius who has achieved something remarkable, something impossible. Is it this world or the other that's the dream? And even if the home he remembers is real, how can Jason possibly make it back to the family he loves? The answers lie in a journey more wondrous and horrifying than anything he could have imagined, one that will force him to confront the darkest parts of himself, even as he battles a terrifying, seemingly unbeatable foe. So this is where the story really takes off. Like the rest of the story is him trying to figure out what the hell's happened. Like, how is he in this world where people still know him as Jason and they think that he's created this remarkable thing, but like none of the other things he remembers about his life exist. So like figuring that out, but then also how does he get back to the life that he knows is his own?
Sure.
Or hopes is his own. He's like, I have these memories. He has one of the little details I thought was cool was that like, if you wear a ring for years and years and years, you get this tiny little like dimple on your finger of having a ring there. He has that dimple on his finger, even though there's no ring. And so he's like, that's what he holds on to as being like, this other life I remember is real. Like there was a ring on that finger, even though in this world I don't have one. Which I thought was just this really crazy detail. So this invention that the Jason 2 guy came up with that allowed him to swap lives, it's called the box. And the only reason I'm going to try to describe the science here is because I think it's important to understand like this is sort of the contraption that allows all of these experiences to play out. It's kind of like the device that Crouch uses to, make the story quote unquote make sense in our world. Okay, so in simple terms, if this is simple, someone can ingest or inject themselves with a serum that disengages the part of their brain that like inhibits them from experiencing multiple realities at once. So like as we are right now, we only see what we see in front of us. This is our world. This is our reality. And so this serum kind of like gets rid of that part of our brain. And the serum in combination with this box, like that when you step into, it's almost like sensory deprivation. It's like completely dark. There's nothing around. When you have the serum that inhibits you from experiencing multiple realities and you get in this box, essentially, you're now open to infinite possibilities of like timelines you've lived.
Interesting. The sensory deprivation chamber sounds very similar to Recurrence, the other book.
Yeah. So the box though is just like, it's just air. It's like a closet. You could picture it. So it's not like there's no water or like anything like that. But the way the box is described is like once they're in there, it's just like hallways that go on forever and ever and ever. And there's just doors, identical doors. And essentially when you walk through a door, that's a different timeline.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And throughout the process, like this is how the Jason 2 guy who created this invention ended up finding Jason 1's life with his wife and his son and his, picturesque happiness. Mm-hmm. It was one of the doors in this box. And so like as he journeys to try to get back to his old life, he's trying different doors and he's like, I'll just pick one, and some of them are like apocalyptic and some of them, he realizes the same people from his life exist, but their relationships never happened. And so it's like all twisted as he's trying to put the pieces together. Okay. And one thing I thought was really interesting was that he discovered that what you see on the other side of the door is largely a result of like the thoughts and emotions you experience before you open the door. Okay. So he would sit down and like write in great detail about an experience that evoked the emotion he felt, with his wife and his son. So that when he opened the door, the world he found would be the one where that emotion existed. Like that was the truth.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So, the twist of it all is that every time someone makes a choice inside the box, so every time he opens a door and like does whatever he does in that universe, it creates like another timeline, like another reality, almost like he's splitting over and over and over and over and over again.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of like the butterfly effect thing going on here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So like he's creating a new version of himself from that point forward that carries with it all of the memories and experiences he's had up to that point. And that comes into play towards the end of the book, which is just an incredibly, like, it is so absurd. I can't even explain it. But anyways, so it's really thought-provoking because, this Jason character,
Mm-hmm.
he had those thoughts at the beginning of the book, like, what if I had pursued my research? Would I be the one with this award? Am I happy with my career? Like, is my relationship with my wife and our family, is that enough? Or did I miss out on something? And then against his will, he's thrown into that world. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what your life would be like if you hadn't made those choices and you had pursued your research. And like in getting there, he realizes like this is absolutely not what I want. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I made the choice I wanted to make. I want my wife, I want my son. Like I am not who I am without them. And so like that love for them
Mm-hmm.
is what drives him and motivates him and gets him through all of this like crazy shit that he experiences inside the box on these different timelines as he's like trying to get back to these people who essentially he feels like made him who he is,
Gotcha.
and are part of his identity. So yeah, I'm
Sounds
afraid.
really trippy. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I definitely think about like the what ifs in life. I think that's probably pretty human. And then to like be confronted with them, my gosh, I would have a panic attack.
Yeah, confronted with them, and also like you're in this reality where people know you as someone else. Like you still look like you still have the same name. And so these people think that he is the genius who created this box. And they're like, tell us how you did it. You're the only one who's used it, and come back. Like, we want to know everything.
Tell
And
me
he's
your
like,
ways.
yeah. And he's like, I don't fucking know. But he can't say that because he's essentially like trapped in this other life. And he's like, how do I successfully and safely escape this world where
Mm-hmm.
people think I'm one person and make it back to my world? And like in these different timelines, like he witnesses himself and his wife and his son die multiple times, all because like in every story something else happened, like different choices
Yeah.
were made, there was a ripple effect that led to one thing or another. And so over the course of however long it takes him to get back to his original timeline, he's experiencing tragedy and death and loss and like all these other different choices. He's like confronted with the fact that his life could have played out in each of these different ways. Like they're all real. They're just
Be honest,
not.
how many times did you throw this book across the room?
Not as many times as I wanted to throw recursion across the room.
Oh, all right.
But yeah. And so I guess the suspenseful part comes in because he has a limited number of these vials of serum to use in the box. And so he has to get to his, if he uses them up before he gets back to his original timeline, he's
Stuck there
lost
forever.
all hope of, yeah, he's stuck there forever and he has no hope of finding his wife and son again. So
Oh boy.
yeah. So yeah, he has to like escape and navigate these different realities over and over and over and over again. And like is constantly bombarded with the like, if you had done this, this is what would have happened. If you had done this,
Right.
this is what would have happened. So yeah. I mean, it
That's a
really makes
lot.
you think. It's a lot, yeah. I hope I did a good job of describing it. Madison said he's going to listen to this episode because he wants to know.
Well, first, Madison, you have excellent taste in books. Good job. Second, Blake, what are you doing with your life that you are conceptualizing of all of these heartbreaking scenarios and slamming them into one book or two books?
I know.
Like, it
I
seems
know.
like, is Blake a he or a she? I don't know. It seems like they think about time travel and alternate universes a lot because that's a theme in Recurrence too.
Yeah, at the end of Dark Matter, he wrote like how he approaches novel writing, and it's like he uses his writing as a way to explore big questions that he has.
Yeah.
And so it's an opportunity to like dive into research and things like that. And he like highly credited and thanked the physics experts who helped him like craft some of the like rationale, the science behind how all of this could be feasible. So
You
yeah.
got to get that like background knowledge, right? Because what if a physicist actually reads this book and then you're like, okay, well, it's got to make sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
part of the thing that I love about writing and reading. You get to absorb all of these different subject areas and like different worlds that are just kind of, weren't previously accessible to you or you didn't really like think about or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and just make you think and reflect on your own life. Like it's such a relatable question that he poses. Like, are you happy? Is your life enough? Do you, wonder what might have been if you had made different choices?
Right.
And so,
Seems like the moral of the story is it's nice to wonder, but you made those choices for a reason.
yeah,
Well, I like the
yeah,
ending. I might actually read it now that I like the fact that you get that, sort of vibe. Whether he makes it back or not, you got to read the book to find out.
yeah, I'm not going to give that away. But it is interesting because in some of the timelines he visits, like the reality is very close to his original timeline in terms
Okay.
of like there's no wild apocalypse or like things like that or plague or anything, but like his wife is a famous successful artist with her own gallery, whereas in his timeline, like I don't know if she teaches art or like she still does art, but it's not like her main career, so it's almost like he sees his wife living out her dream in a timeline where they're not together. And so then he is forced to confront the idea that like his wife has given up things too, to make their lives what they've become in their original timeline. And like her choosing him meant her forfeiting her art in some way. So like
Yeah,
I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow too, to realize like not only have you made choices that affected your life, but like your partner has made choices that affected their life. And then
absolutely.
you ask like, are they happy? Are they questioning this relationship? Like, is it enough for them? Which is kind of cool because like then you see the main character Jason, like his perspective, how it evolves over the course of the book after seeing all of these different realities. Like, yeah, it's like, how can we achieve that perspective without going through what Jason went through? Can we?
Right.
So, anyways, that's my synopsis of Dark Matter. It's really, really good. Highly recommend. Super suspenseful. Some parts you're going to cringe at and be very uncomfortable, but it is worth the read.
It sounds like Blake does not disappoint with this one. I kind of swore off Blake books before or after I read the last one, but I might have to give this one a try.
I think you should. So Madison had me read Dark Matter before Recursion, which was
Ah,
really smart. Because
Yes.
if I had read Recursion first, I may have been like, fuck that.
Exactly.
And again, not because Recursion's a bad book, but like the shit that happens is just like, I can't handle it.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's this one part that I read at a really difficult time in my life where I had to put it down for a minute. I felt a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
And I mean, what you bring into books definitely affects how you're going to react to those things. So that's how it is.
Was it like her
It was
and
the
her
test
relationship?
subject for the chamber. They paid someone who does
Oh,
drugs a lot of money in
yeah.
order to do that. And I was like, he's a vulnerable population. You can't do that. Like, that's not fair. I had a full-blown meltdown sticking up for this human being. So
Well, I was gonna say that piece you have a connection to, but also her mom's
yeah.
disease, which caused her to want to do all of that in the first place. Like you have personal experience with that.
Yeah, I definitely empathized with the character on that front. And I was like, girl, if I had this science knowledge, I'd be doing the same thing. But yeah, that was the part, the when they actually started experimentation and whatnot.
Aww.
It was bad. It was real bad. Like I still feel it right now.
Yeah.
Just harkening back to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So getting on to the light end of things.
Yeah.
JoJo Moyes, she kind of breaks with tradition in this book because like she typically will take on or bring people together of different economic strata, for lack of a better word, in a romantic situation. So people who wouldn't normally have been put together are, her most popular one was turned into a movie, Me Before You, with Emilia Clarke and Sam McAlpin, I think is how you say his last name. And yeah, so in that situation, it involved a quadriplegic, well-off man needing someone to help him. And then he ended up with a cute little aide with a funky sense of style, and they ended up, caring for each other. So this one, however, brings together female friend groups. So go women.
Yeah.
I liked that. You still have the different economic situations that she's really exploring in this one. So I did appreciate that. We talk about shoes here, which is very like girl topic. And the only thing I didn't like about it is that at the beginning of this book, it felt a little superficial. Like literally, they both go to the same gym. The person who has the Louis obviously loses her bag, and the person who doesn't even know what Louis Vuittons are ends up with her bag. She puts them on, it changes her life, and then all of these different things, like events end up happening that bring them together, along with a couple of other women, and these badass babes solve their problems together.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah, it was very, very cool. So I enjoyed this book mostly because of the feminist things that are involved in it. Specifically, just them coming together, leaning on each other. It pops into women's lives at a different, I guess, at a point in time that we don't talk about all of the time. So your main characters both have like grown-ish children. I think one of them is in high school, or at least he's at a boarding school when he talks to his mom. The other one, like the other main character, her daughter is old enough to be like working, but still at home, So these are people who have control over themselves. You also have, it explores the dynamics between older relationships. So both of them have some kind of altercation with their husband. The one main character, and I should use their names instead of just referring to them as main characters. So Nisha is the well-to-do person, at least at the beginning of the book, and Sam is the woman who gains the shoes and the confidence with all of these labels and brands. She really needed to start loving herself more and to gain confidence from the space that she was in. Sam's life as we enter it is very much she's getting beaten down by her boss. She's just trying to do her best. She's the breadwinner of her family. Her husband lost his job and his dad and is depressed and sleeps all the time. And her daughter's kind of like out there hustling, and their dog doesn't control its bowels. That's always fun when she comes home.
Just like a representation, like a literal shit show.
Yeah, exactly. And so she really needed to be able to handle that and get into it. She really needed to be able to focus more on herself, because she was trying to give to all these people, down to even the parents who were sending her messages about what they need and how she's not like magically making her husband not depressed anymore. I think a lot of women will be able to empathize with being pulled in so many directions at that phase of life and potentially losing a sense of like who you are in your personality and your femininity. She throws on these shoes and this designer like Chanel jacket and bosses out a couple of meetings, makes a ton of sales, and just ends up having this like confidence. They end up being a mode for her of connection and networking and just like showing up as her most authentic self. So that was good for her. Nisha ends up needing the shoes because she is being given the shaft by a troublemaker, very rich husband. He has found the next trophy wife, so he's done with her. So amongst other things, a couple $100 worth of shoes would help, to get her set. But it turns out there's a little bit of like salaciousness involved in the whole thing. Nisha had like this plan that she called her insurance policy that we don't really know about at the beginning. And it kind of unfolds from there. The shoes apparently were custom. So the person who's trying to give her information about this quote unquote insurance policy is looking for the person who's wearing the shoes. So it all gets kind of convoluted. Then Sam has a good friend who is going through cancer treatments. We find out that she's laid off and, may not be able to make her mortgage pretty soon. Sam gives her money. Nisha finds community and companionship with someone who I think her name is Jasmine, but she's working as a maid at the hotel that Nisha was previously staying at and that her husband still is. And Jasmine's able to really show Nisha like the ropes of how to live in, that scenario. And then as the story unfolds, all these four women come together to try and slowly untangle all of their problems. And I really like the sense of empowerment that comes with that and being able to, overcome everything as a crew.
Yeah. Where does this take place?
Oh, all of her stuff is in the UK. I want to say it's in London. Definitely the United Kingdom, a city of some kind, but I don't really remember. I lied. Not all of her books take place in the UK. She had a book about librarians, The Giver of Stars, and that was her first American-based novel.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would read her grocery lists if they were an option. She's fabulous. I actually saw her speak when she came to the Philadelphia Library on Vine Street, and it was before Me Before You came out, and she had a great group of people there. But she was revealing the cast. She said Emilia Clarke was going to play the main character, and I forgot where I was. And she said, "No shit," like full volume. And then I was like, I'm excited about that, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
Sorry. You let the emotions take over. I love that. I'm trying to think of other questions I might have about your book.
It's pretty straightforward. I continued reading mostly because I wanted to like see how this whole thing was going to unfold, because pretty quickly, like within the first chapter, they've traded the shoes and you're like expecting something to happen here, you know? And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm like at the back of this book, like, what about those shoes? Sheeple, what is going on with they're like, yeah. At one point, they're like in a camper van, and someone or somebody may know where this pertinent piece of information is. And I'm like, good Lord. So,
Yeah, like took a huge detour and then came back to.
yeah, I mean, it set up all of these things. And I mean, if you think about it, you may not, you know, be, yeah, it had a lot of setup that it had to do, and then a lot of like living that you have to do. I mean, if you don't have a place to sleep, it makes sense that you would get caught up in, you know, doing that and then focus less on where these, you know, unique Louis Vuittons are. So, any other things about someone else's shoes?
I really like the cover. I meant to say that when you first held it up.
It is cute, right?
Yeah, I like the like city skyline and the like orangish coral background, like sunset. It's pretty.
Yeah, my book club ended up liking it too. We read it for that. Actually, they had I like pre-order anything JoJo Moyes because that's my level.
Mm-hmm.
And they had it was one of the items on our like poll as to what we were going to read, and it tied with another book. And I was like, well, since this one is sitting on my kitchen table, we're going to be reading this one. It's a perk of being the organizer. So yeah, it came in via pre-order. I loved it. I will read everything that she does. It's not one of those ones that I'll like hold on to. I'll probably loan it out and like let it go live its life somewhere. Um, there are books that I just like to keep close to home.
Yeah,
And I love her. I have saved her other books, just not this one. So that's like the level of love.
I like it.
So I started reading Other Birds and I like it. I got quickly sucked in because it's very unique. I mean, one of the first things that you experience is that she seems to have this bird in a taxi, and then you find out that the bird like isn't actually real. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay. What the hell is happening here?
Yeah, I
Um,
remember when I discovered it was invisible, and I was like, "Oh, that's a twist." Okay.
right around the time that apparently was like perched on her head while she's trying to, I was like, no
I
one's
feel
going to
like
talk to you about that.
feel like this wouldn't be okay.
Right. I feel like possibly whomever you were speaking to might want to say something about that. But I love the Southern Gothic feel. I particularly like it for this like season. Because I imagine that however hot I might be out by a pool or whatever when I'm reading those books is equally how hot they might be, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, summer in South Carolina.
Exactly. Um, so definitely like that about it. I am not reading it very quickly because I took a brain break for my birthday weekend,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm getting back on my reading grind. I was gonna read it this morning when I woke up for my like morning read, but that would end up with a very unproductive day.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically only read or try to only read nonfiction in the morning so that I don't end up pretending to meet my obligations for the day and then just getting stuck in the book, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, more on that after I finish it, but highly recommend, obviously. Um, do you have any updates to share with the crew or the pod squad, if you will?
Mm-hmm. I don't think so. No.
Okay. Sounds like we're onto our mental health moment.
Yeah, what's yours this week, Sean?
You know, I'm really just like embracing the season. I may or may not have talked about this before, but like during, it feels like after your years of school your life like really goes in phases, and the spring is really like a culmination, but then like a new beginning of whatever your summer is going to be. So I'm really like into that vibe, especially, you know, with our birthdays right there. It kind of adds to it too. So just trying to really embrace all that there is to love about the start of, or the, you know, we're in the midst of spring, beginning of summer, getting ready for all of those, hopefully an abundance of pool/beach days, sticking me near a body of water and reading a lot of books.
You need vacation.
Yeah, or at least for my brain to catch up to my mouth. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was thinking, and maybe it's just a little like heightened because we live in a college town, but we still live by those like semester changes. And we are so, this weekend is graduation in Chapel Hill, and we are so flipping excited for all of these students to like go the F home.
She's in her townie era.
Yeah. But it's like, it is this sort of like transition from spring to summer. So even though like our lives don't change much, you know, we work regardless of the season. The fact that like graduation happens and then the town gets a little quieter, it does still feels like that.
Yeah, your life
Transition.
just like changes. I mean, it probably happens to a lot of people. Not just, they're just like logical breaks in your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, anyway. Maybe I'm making it up. People, weigh in. Are there logical breaks in your life? Are Tiffany and I just special?
Well, we are special, but I think that other people probably experience it too.
Right. I mean, it might be a calendar year. Maybe if you're like super businessy, maybe it's a fiscal year. Maybe, you know, you've got kids and September's really like your big getting started for everything. Maybe it's a January to December, but if you've been here for a while, you know that I am not a fan of making changes in the dead of winter when my body is hibernating. It's not happening.
No.
But now when we're blooming, it's a great time to make changes in your life. So yeah,
Cool.
glad we're both just like flowing with the seasons over here.
Yeah, I'm definitely flowing. My mental health moment is to have fun with all the wedding stuff because I realized I can either feel overwhelmed by it or I can feel really excited by it because it is exciting. And so
Yeah.
I am choosing the latter. I'm choosing to like
Yay!
go in head first, do all the wedding crafts and projects and like realize my vision. I'm not going to be overwhelmed by all of that. I'm choosing like it's exciting, it's fun, having fun with it.
I
So
love that. Yeah, I'm sure there are other people who can empathize with that as well,
yeah.
because it's supposed to be really fabulous, but you can definitely get caught up in the monotony of it all, or the details of it all. Not monotony.
Yeah, I told Madison the other day, I was like, all of these details, like I'm spending a lot of time thinking through the details, and it does feel important to me because I want to design this day that I have envisioned for so long. But at the same time, I'm trying to put it all into perspective and remember, like, yes, I care about the details right now, but in the grand scheme of things, are these details really what matters? No. So, like,
Right.
you know, if not everything gets done, or if it doesn't look exactly the way I want it to look, or if I don't get this thing that I thought would look pretty next to this, you know, whatever.
Right.
Big picture, that's not the whole point.
Right.
So, yeah, just trying to remember that, keep some perspective.
Yep. Your goal is to marry your man.
Marry
Everything
my
else is just
man.
gravy.
Just gravy. Yeah, Madison said the other day, and I don't necessarily disagree with him, that he's just ready to be on the honeymoon. He's like, I'm ready to get this day over with.
I mean,
Not
who
because
isn't?
I know. Yeah.
Who isn't? Well, I'm glad. I love your mental health moment.
Thanks.
And I hope that you are able to find more joy in it.
Yeah, I've been finding a lot of joy already. The overwhelm is, you know, small potatoes.
Well, you got to get at it when it's small because then it gets scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, it'll definitely get fun when you and I decamp for your bachelorette, and we may or may not have fun book clues or things planned for that time. So find us back here or wherever you get your podcasts.
Read more books.
Woohoo!